You're listening to Covering the Fields with your host, Joe Ellison.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes and reviews predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we'll talk about football, basketball, baseball, hockey, and the Olympic wrap-up show, and our You Got Hosed segment. We'd like to remind you listeners out there to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Please give us your feedback and tell us your You Got Hosed moments, and listen to our fantasy football mock draft special. But first off this week, I'd like to introduce our sports expert, Charles O'Loughlin. How are you doing today, Charles?
Excellent, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. So, Charles, the National Football League preseason gets into full swing this week, and luckily, we don't have any new significant injuries to talk about. But we have had some key players sign some hefty new contracts. Can you tell us about some of those?
Absolutely, Joe. But first, it's great to have football back. And you know football is back when the Dallas Cowboys lose on national television, right? What better way to start the season? Don't know if there's a better tradition. Josh Allen signed that huge deal, 6 years, $258 million, $150 million guaranteed. These guys are getting paid. Good for them.
So, Charles, there's a full slate of preseason games to bet on this week. Are you touching any of them?
You know, I'm not huge on preseason, Joe, just because a lot of players sit. There's a lot of competition. You know, playbooks are very, very small. So I try to stay back, get my gauges on backups, see how new coaching staffs are coming together. This is where I'm just mainly playing futures and props.
So, Charles, my Cowboys are playing the never been in a Super Bowl Cardinals Friday night. What do you expect to see in that game, if anything?
Fact check. They have been in the Super Bowl, and they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was not a catch by Centennial Holmes, but that is a debate for another day.
I don't know how that could have slipped my mind. Yep, they did make it to one, but naturally they did lose.
One of the greatest playoff runs in NFL history. That was a crazy run. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. I don't know if Dak Prescott's going to play. I don't think Kyler Murray's going to play. Like I said, as a Cardinals fan, this is going to be a good viewing to see what my backups look like. I know the Cardinals roster from front to back, so it's good to see who's going to make the cut.
So, Charles, I've been meaning to ask you this, but how did you get to be such a Cardinals fan? You're up here in northern Nevada, and there aren't too many of you out here.
Yeah, I was born in Lake Havasu, and I grew up in Arizona, Phoenix area till I was about 12, and then I moved to Nevada, Henderson area, and then just made my way up. So, I got to watch Larry, I got to watch Anquan, got to see the little bit of Pat Tillman, God rest his soul, him play. I got to watch A-Dub be everywhere around the football, and I've always just been an underdog guy. I loved underdogs, so I just watched the team since a kid, and I've stuck with them.
Well, it's good you stuck with them. And they will continue to be the underdog for a while, probably.
I don't know. Kyler's on his way up, so we'll see.
Possible MVP candidate this year.
A lot rides on the team around you. I think they're going to do really good.
Well, I do like to bet a little preseason football. I can't wait till the regular season. Last week, I gave out my first pick. I said to take the under 33 in the Hall of Fame game. Went off at 31.5. Outcome was never in doubt. Final score, unfortunately, Pittsburgh 16, Dallas 3, for a total of 19 points. Was a winner, though. So, ka-ching, that's my cash register.
Did you only take the over-under, or did you bet with your heart and take the boys?
Very small amount on my boys. Much more on the total, for sure. So, yes, preseason games are pretty much a crapshoot, and I can't really advise betting on them, just like you. But tomorrow night, I'm going to place a small wager on New England, getting 2 points at home against Washington. After last year's losing season, I'm thinking head coach Bill Belichick wants to start this season off on a positive note. And I'm going to try Pittsburgh +1 at Philadelphia. I like the fact that the Steelers already have a game under their belts in this intrastate rivalry. So switching gears here, Charles, you are the biggest basketball fan I know, and I'm sure you were watching the men's Olympic team. They started off this campaign super shaky, but still managed to become 4-time defending champions by beating Australia in the semifinals and France in the finals. So how did they do it?
Kevin Durant, one of the greatest to ever touch the hardwood. I said it on multiple shows. If they have KD, that's where my money's at. I think it's funny because after that game, there was headlines on Sports Center and all over the web. Is Kevin Durant one of the greatest in the world right now? I don't like that debate, but shout out to Kevin. He does his thing. I think if you look at his career, it's great. To me, it goes right up there with Larry, Magic. I mean, the kid can shoot. Got mad handles. He's a leader. So good job, KD.
Well, I took Australia plus the 12 points in the semi, and they were actually beating the U.S. by 15 in the first half, still had a lead at halftime, but that 32-10 third quarter proved to be the difference as the U.S. won by 19. I must admit that third quarter was pretty impressive.
Yes, it was.
So anyway, let's that loser didn't deter me from betting on France plus 13 points in the final. France had already beaten the U.S. in the preliminary round, and they hung in there pretty much the whole game, only to lose by 5. Maybe if the two teams hadn't met in group play, France could have snuck up on them and won instead of having to beat the U.S. twice. What do you think of that?
Yeah, possible, but that's not how the chips fell. The cards were played how they were played.
Did you think France was the second best team?
Yeah, they were definitely talented. I don't watch much other basketball than USA just because I know the players. When it comes to basketball, I'm a huge fan of the game. So that means even though I'm a Clippers fan, at the end of the day, I can still appreciate a player and what they bring to the game. So even though I root for a team, at the end of the day, I love a player. So, I watch USA basketball just to see the studs come out.
Well, now all the NBA players have moved on to the offseason. And Charles, you did predict the Russell Westbrook trade from Washington to the Lakers. Are you proposing any more crazy trade ideas before the regular season starts?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. I want to play GM here for a second. If I'm the GM of the Clips, if I'm the owner of the Clips, I'm picking up the phone and I'm seeing what 76ers want for Ben Simmons. There's a lot of talk out there that they want Dame. Well, I don't know if Dame's going anywhere because Dame's making about $40 million this year, 39 and change. How NBA's trades work is they have to match dollar for dollar. There's no kind of trade this guy. That's why money's involved in trades if salary caps don't line up. So even though I love Pat Bev, if you do the math, you could get rid of Pat Bev, Rajon Rondo, and I'd hate to see him go, but Marcus Morris Sr. is making about 15 this year, comes out to about 33, 35. So if you can make that deal for Ben Simmons, I'd hate losing Marcus Morris, but you get a kid who can play shooting forward, shooting guard, maybe even run a little point at 6'10", 240 in Ben Simmons. Pairing him up with Kawhi, Paul George, Terrence Mann, who's going to have a stellar sophomore season. They got some really good kids out of the draft, BJ Boston. I think this team is really loaded. They got Serge Ibaka back. I think their offseason went under the radar, so I think they got to see what they can do to get Ben Simmons because that's the only place I could see Ben Simmons going. I don't think the Lakers can make a move for him. The Warriors are going to be trading a lot of unknown kids that don't match salary-wise. I think if the Clips are serious about running L.A., if the Clips are serious about bringing home a title, they got to see what they can do to get Ben Simmons.
Well, you did mention Simmons and shooting in the same sentence, and isn't that the whole idea of not getting Ben Simmons is the fact he doesn't score?
Well, you would think that, but since he's entered the league, he has the most assisted threes since he's entered the league. And that right there is going to open up shots for Kawhi, who is one of the best mid-ranges in the game and had a great three-point shot. Paul George. You lose Pat Bev, who could put up points. But Simmons, there's videos coming out right now of Simmons working on his jump shot. He's good at going into the paint. And sometimes putting a player in a new city, sometimes giving them a new chip on their shoulder, something to prove to an old team. will bring something out in somebody. So I'd like to think that even though if he doesn't get the best shot, like we said, months ago on our podcast, Simmons has to go somewhere where he's not the 1, 2, or 3. He has to be the 4, 5, 6. That's something that's really important to see him thrive in the game, because he brings so many other things defensively, assisting points that he brings to the table for other players. So I think the Clips is a really good situation. You lose Pat Bev, but he's getting old, and that attitude is a big problem. And then other than that, the only person you would lose is Marcus Morris, but you're getting a kid that's bigger, younger. I mean, it's something to be thinking about.
Well, Charles, I noticed the NBA Summer League has begun in Las Vegas, and we could actually wager on these games. So who's playing, and is anybody worth betting on?
I stay away from the Summer League because it's a lot of freshmen, sophomores, maybe some juniors coming in, young kids that are still 20, 21, guys that didn't get drafted into the NBA, G League players, showing out, trying to make the back end of a roster, trying to lock up a G League spot. So I stay away from it. It's more of a show for NBA players to come out, show all their diamonds, their gold teeth, their rings, So, but yeah, you watch some of the kids. Cade Cunningham is really showing out this year. Mac McClung, the kid I talked about last week, hit a buzzer beater last week for the Lakers. The kid from Seton Hall, Sandra Mukulashvili, excuse me if I pronounced the name wrong, came from Seton Hall. He's a Milwaukee Buck now, dropped a double-double, 11 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. He was really big to me coming out the draft. I'm surprised he fell to the second. If you like seeing the up-and-coming kids in the NBA, the Summer League's definitely something to tune into.
Well, they've been saying Jalen Green should have been the first pick now instead of the kid from Oklahoma State. Are you in agreement with that, or you think they made the right pick? On our little, when we talked about this, I liked Jalen Green more. I compared this draft class to the one that Zion Williams and Ja Morant came out. I have a little bit comparison to Jalen Green to Ja Morant, can do a little bit more. I think has a little bit higher of a ceiling, a little bit more potential, but the floor is a little lower. Zion had a little bit higher floor, but doesn't have the potential Ja had, and that's how I saw Cade Cunningham. Both great players. Think they're both going to be, I don't like using the word superstar because there's very few actual superstars in the NBA, but they're going to be guys that you can use as cornerstones to help a team win, for sure. We didn't get to see much of Jalen Green. He was in the G League last year.
He was. He skipped college, made some money. Good for him. Do what you got to do for your family. And now he's in the NBA.
So finally, Charles, high school football begins Friday in a couple of states. And there's a junior in high school by the name of Quinn Ewers that has caught the attention of the nation. Tell us a little about this young man.
Yeah, so, NIL, name, image, and likeness is the new thing going on in college where these kids can get paid for their name, image, and likeness. This kid was the #1 quarterback in 2022. He has the credits, went to summer school, did all he needed to do. He's actually graduating this year, his junior year. He was going to go to Texas, decommitted to Texas, and is going to Ohio State because he can make more money in Ohio State. So he's skipping his senior year in high school and rolling straight in because Ohio State's starting job is up for grabs. So, I just think that's interesting. I think maturity is extremely important for any athlete moving up. I also don't like the fact that you're going to hand a 17-year-old close to $1 million. If I was 17 getting $1 million, I don't know where I'd be. I'd make some bad decisions, probably be covered in some tattoos that I'd probably be regretting. So, I don't know how we'll see how he pans out. I think the the more I think about it with the Clemson quarterback signing with Dr. Pepper, he's going to start being part of their commercials for Fansville, August 26th. I think you're taking away from the kids focusing on the game, which was already hard for them being in college. I think you're taking away from it more, and it's going to dilute the game. This might be the end of the NCAA college football. What happens if the NFL X League, what league was that, Joe, that was here last year?
We had XFL and AAF.
So it's almost at the point where it's like, that these kids can sign a contract and make all this money in the XFL. What's the point of going to school? You know, I mean, if you're handing the kid $1 million, does he really have to go to class? That's a serious question. You're handing me $1 million. What do I need to go to class for? So, you know, this might not happen in a year, might not happen in 2 years, but I do think this is going to hurt the NCAA in the long run.
Well, thank you, Charles. I'll be looking forward to having you on next week as we start tackling some of the NFL and NCAA prediction sheets.
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you for having me.
That was Charles O'Laughlin. Next up, we're going to move on to the Diamonds and talk some Major League Baseball with our expert, Ronnie McKinnon.
This ball is crushed.
How's it going today, Ronnie?
I'm doing great, Joe. How about yourself?
I'm feeling terrific, thanks. So, Ronnie, there's about 50 games left in the regular season. Which division race should we all be watching?
Well, I think it's still exciting with the Giants, Dodgers, and Padres. But now all of a sudden, like Philadelphia pulled into first place in their division. The Mets fallen a little bit, but basically because Philadelphia won 8 in a row until the Dodgers beat them last night. And there's still 4 teams in the American League East that have a shot at the division or the wild card.
So in the NL West, we still got San Francisco up by 4. The Dodgers just can't seem to catch up to the Giants. And San Diego is slipping back down to 7. Who's going to win it? Are you going to stick with your prediction of the Dodgers winning the division? You being a Dodger fan?
Well, yeah, I still think they have the most talent. Now, does most talent always win? They've had some injuries, but a lot of teams have had injuries. The Giants have just really, played great together. I give Gabe Kapler, the manager, a lot of credit to take a team like that with a lot of guys that even their fans didn't hear of before. And they just go out and play. And, of course, yeah, they haven't had pressure on them. They weren't expected to do well. But still, they're looking really good. I still think in the end the Dodgers will be there.
Well, we'll see about that. The Dodgers are favored to win the division as we speak. Last we checked 2 weeks ago, the New York Mets were up by a handful of games. And now they're in third place. What happened to the Mets?
Well, again, it's not. They're around 500 ball now. The big thing is Philadelphia won 8 in a row until last night. So that kind of catapulted them right up there.
What about Atlanta? Atlanta also passed the Mets.
And they're in second in that division, and they're still well in it even after losing Acuna Jr. They're those 3 could be battling it out right to the end.
Okay, pressure's on. Prediction time. Out of those 3, who's going to get there? I know a couple weeks ago we said the Mets, but now with this 2-8 slide that the Mets are on, you're going to stick with them?
Yeah, I don't remember saying the Mets, but
I think I forced you to pick somebody.
Yeah,
I usually do that.
I don't even remember that I would have picked the Mets in, but you do that. I think not just because of the 8-game winning streak they just had. Philadelphia, I think they're going to be the ones.
Okay. In the Central, can Cincinnati possibly catch Milwaukee?
They can. They're still in that. They're in the wild card. They've played really well lately over the last 30 or 40 games compared to how they started. They have some quality players on that team, and I think they're still have a shot. I think Milwaukee would, if I had to pick, Milwaukee will probably win that division.
Yeah, I'm pretty much 100% agreement on that. You were talking about Milwaukee's pitching.
Correct, yeah. They have great pitching, sure.
So in the American League West, my Oakland A's have cut Houston's lead down to 2 games. So what's happening to the Astros, and who wins the division there?
I don't think anything crazy is happening with the Astros. They're a quality team. They're still going to be there. Oakland has gotten closer, and I think they'll battle till the end, I think. But I believe Houston is just the better team.
The AL East, Tampa Bay has pulled away a little, a 5-game lead. You got Boston, the New York Yankees, and Toronto all bunching up behind them, which is easily the toughest division in baseball. Is anyone going to catch the Rays?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't. That's not over either. Boston unexpectedly has done awesome this year. They've faltered a little. They're still there. The Yankees are still there. They've played a little better here in the last week, and Toronto is playing really good ball. It's all up in the air right there in that division. In the end, I would pick Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think up by 5. They're looking pretty comfortable. It'd be tough to pick against them where they're at right now.
5 isn't. There's like 50 games to go, so there a lot of things can happen. But if I had to pick, I would pick Tampa Bay.
Well, certainly that wild card race is going to be pretty amazing.
Sure. Yeah, because there's 6 division winners and there's 2 wild cards from each league, so, with the 10-team total in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I guess we'll just give the AL Central to the Chicago White Sox. That's a done deal, right?
Yeah, Cleveland has been very disappointing, and I've always been a big fan of Terry Francona, the manager. But they're at 500 ball now. I think they're a game under as we speak, I believe. But kind of surprising. But yeah, Chicago's just they've got a lot going on, and they're getting some injured players back too. So.
Well, it sounds like just about like 16 of the 30 teams still have a shot in your eyes of making the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes.
With the 2 wild card teams, sure. I think so. With about 50 games to go, give or take a game or so.
And for the World Series, you picked the Dodgers to beat Tampa Bay, if I remember correctly. Any reason to change that prediction?
I don't think so. Of course, now Mookie Betts is back, injured again, probably on the 10-day. Turner's missed a couple games, 2 big players for us, but we've just got a lot of good talent, and getting Trey Turner was really awesome, and Scherzer, of course. So I still believe they'll be there.
So, Ronnie, the Field of Dreams game is tomorrow. What can you tell us about it?
Well, that was a great movie, and they're actually going to play a game there Thursday. It'll be 4:00 our time. It'll be New York, the Yankees and the White Sox, and that is in Dyersville, Iowa, where the Field of Dreams is.
That'll be about 4:00.
4:00 our time.
West Coast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I saw that tickets, average ticket, $1,413, anywhere from $847 to almost $4,000 a ticket. Would you be willing to?
It's just that's just another example of just a lot of the people that would just really love it and enjoy it, and their kids aren't going to be able to afford to do it.
Would you really enjoy it? Would you be willing to fork over $900 to go see that game if it was in our backyard?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty. The movie was good, and I think it's pretty cool that they're going to play a game there.
What's the most you've ever paid for a baseball ticket, or any ticket, or a sports event?
Really, growing up in LA, I had really good friends and their mom that worked there. I got a lot of tickets at really good deals, so I never really had to pay much. Sometimes we used to go and buy scalper tickets in the parking lot many years ago, and so I never really had to pay a lot for a ticket myself.
Good for you. So Ronnie, there's been more baseball movies made than any other sport. Which one is your favorite?
Well, I first was thinking about The Rookie, which I thought was a great movie.
I've seen it. Excellent movie.
Excellent movie.
Makes people cry, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I took my nephew there when he was really young, before he started playing baseball, actually, and or right when he was starting, and it was great, But when I started thinking about that the other day, and I realized Moneyball was just a really great movie. Brad Pitt, playing Billy Bean, who is still the vice president of operations with the A's. So, yeah, I'd probably pick that one, actually.
All right. Well, you picked the A's movie. I'm very happy about that. So I was watching Little League Baseball the other day. Noticed that the World Series has video reviews of close plays. Is that really necessary for Little Leaguers?
Well, I'm okay with it, actually. I mean, Little League is always been a big deal. I played it, but I mean, it's really become a big deal, and the Little League World Series is huge in Williamsport every year, and it's a big deal, and I think I'm not opposed to having some replays to get it right.
Well, is there anything else, Ronnie, good or bad about baseball that's on your mind today?
I think I was reading some stuff about the pitcher's mound, and it's actually it's been 60 feet 6 inches since like the late 1800s, and they are now experimenting in the Atlantic League, and Major League Baseball has them doing that, of putting it back to 62 feet 6 inches, like 2 more feet. Obviously, again, to hurt the pitching and increase the batting and the home runs. I think it was the 80s and 90s, it was 15% was how many strikeouts there were. Now this season it's up to 24. So that's kind of Major League Baseball thinking, hey, that's another reason to change it. We want more runs and more home runs. So anyway, they're experimenting with that now, which is an extra 2 feet to the pitching, mound.
Well, I'm all for more scoring in baseball, but I'm not an old school guy like you. So thank you, Ronnie, for your insight, and we'll talk again soon about some more baseball.
Great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
That's Ronnie McKinnon, here to wrap up the Tokyo Summer Olympics and talk about other sports is our final expert guest today, Gator Gates. How are you today, Gator?
Oh, I'm great. Happy to be here, Joe. Thank you so much.
I'm also doing well. So, different casinos offer different NFL propositions and odds. Gator, have you heard of any large wagers being placed?
There was 2 of them in New Jersey, Joe. At Caesar Sportsbook, they took a $10,000 bet at 5,000 to 1, which would gain you $500,000 or $500,000. And the other one they took was $28,200 at 3,000 to 1, and that'll net the guy $846,000. Now, the sports book declined to say if it was from the same guy, but the line is right now at 2,500 to 1.
So what did he bet, Gator?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go 17-0.
He's betting the Buccaneers to go undefeated, and he put down how much money on that?
The first one was $10,000 at 5,000 to 1, which would be at 500,000.
Well, that's 50 to 1, right? Yeah, 5,000. Yeah,
5,000.
50 to 1.
And the other one was 28,200, and that will net him 8,460,000.
How do you think he's going to do on those 2 bets?
Well, they are the national champions, and when you're number 1, they're gunning for you. I don't care what sport, what business you're in, they're always gunning for you. So to go 17-0 is just, it would be ridiculous.
It's crazy. There's no way they're going to go 17-0. I'm going to flat out make that prediction right now.
Now, Joe, MGM Resorts are reporting that they took a $30,000 bet for Tampa Bay to go 7-1, or they were 7-1 to win the Super Bowl, and the other bet they took was $25,000 at 8-1 for Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl.
Winning the Super Bowl certainly makes a lot of sense. Tom Brady's on that team still, right? Yeah, probably going to go far into the playoffs. Gator, how did the Hall of Fame game stack up betting-wise against Major League Baseball last Thursday?
Well, there was more money bet on the Hall of Fame game than 11 of the 12 baseball games that were played on Thursday. The only one that DraftKings says is the Royals and the White Sox attracted more money. But a different scenario at Caesars, they said that they got 20% more people betting on the Hall of Fame game than they did on the Seattle Yankee game. Now, there are 3 teams that Caesars says that are taking 50% of the money on the Super Bowl, and that'd be the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Cleveland Browns.
Cleveland Browns. Interesting. We'll see how that turns out. They have 9 new starters on defense, but they do have fans. People do believe in that team for some reason. Anyway, Gator, the Canadian Football League season has begun, and I actually made a bet on it last week. Is there any news concerning the CFL we should know?
Well, Joe, there was 4 games last week, and 2 of the games we got to watch on TV. And out of those 2 games, it really looked like a preseason football game. Now, you got to keep in mind, they haven't played any games over 600 days. So I guess that's a little to be expected. But the 2 games that we didn't get to watch was British Columbia Lions against Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan won 33-29. And the other one was real close, Toronto Argonauts 23 and the Calgary Stampede 20. Toronto was at a plus 175, but didn't beat Ottawa. Ottawa played Edmonton. That game was 16-12, and Ottawa was at a plus 235.
So it sounds like 3 of the 4 games went under also.
3 of the 4, that's correct.
So the layoff could certainly be a factor for that.
I would have to agree, especially watching those games. It didn't look like the CFL that I know. It looked more like an NFL preseason game.
Well, one thing I noticed, the Edmonton Eskimos aren't the Eskimos anymore. They are now the Elks. So, Gator, you have been and always will be a huge hockey fan. What's been going on with free agency?
Yeah, that's crazy as well, Joe. Last year, all we heard about it was how hard it was to make deals between these teams. Now, all of a sudden, free agency opened last Wednesday, and within 24 hours, according to TSN, 32 teams spent $576 million on a 128 contract. And that does include the $60.9 million that was spent in the first 9 minutes.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, yeah, especially for hockey.
For hockey.
Talking about money like that, yeah.
So we're talking about Field of Dreams. What's the best hockey movie ever made?
I know everybody out there loves Slapshot, and rightfully so. But I really love Youngblood. It was more realistic to what it is in the junior hockey leagues or how it was back in the 80s and 70s. So if you ever really want to see how it is when you're moving up the ranks in hockey and get to the college level, watch that movie. Very, very eye-opening.
I don't know why, but I haven't seen that one. I have seen Miracle. I'm a big fan of that. Of course, the 1980 gold medal hockey winning team.
Oh, excellent movie, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was 10 years old and I remember crying.
Great.
Yeah, couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Gator, I know you're also a big fan of the Olympics. I know I watched over 100 hours of the action in Tokyo. Did any big odds hit on the betting sheets?
Well, the biggest one that I found, Joe, was in the 3,000-meter steeplechase, women's steeplechase. Peruth Chamudi from Uganda had 80-1. The other one that was really impressive, and I watched this, was the 100-meter dash with Marcel Jacobs from Italy, and he was 25-1. And also another Italian in the men's high jump, Gianmarco, from the Italian, he was 14-1.
Well, that Jacobs guy, that Italian, was actually born in El Paso, Texas. He has an Italian mother, so we get a little bit of credit for that one. Also, Robert Fink, the swimmer, won the 800 and 1,500 meter freestyle at odds of 40 and 25-1, respectively. And that Canadian women's soccer team that beat the U.S. won gold at 20-1. Gator, did any Olympic stories catch your eye over the last 3 weeks?
Not really. I just want to keep it positive. Towards the end and that last week, It wasn't as many stories that were coming out as it was in the very first week. But the one thing that I would like to say is I think Canada did very well at the Olympics. I know they're known for their Winter Olympics, but they did take home 7 gold medals. And very impressive. That would be the biggest one in my eyes.
Well, the United States won the most for the 7th consecutive time, 113, 25 more than second place China, and we won 39 goals, 1 more than China. But that was under the 44.5 proposition bet. But it was our women who led the way with 66 medals and 23 gold. So credit to our women. Gator, were there any particular team events that you thought were better than others?
Well, any of that volleyball was great. Beach volleyball or indoor volleyball. That, as a fan of just watching 2 people go at it or 2 teams go at it, that was the most exciting part of the whole Olympics to me, even better than rugby sevens.
Well, I was surprised to hear our indoor volleyball, that was the first time we ever got gold, considering how important volleyball is in the NC2A. And of course, the beach volleyball, Americans April Ross and Alex Kleinman winning gold. That competition was quite stimulating, even titillating, you might say. Tight, great matches. And Gator, were there any particular athletes you found to be outstanding?
I'd have to go back to Jacobs again. And he came out of nowhere to win the fastest man competition, and it was just really fun to watch that event. I'm not really a track and field kind of guy, but yeah, it made me really proud to be an American. At that moment, it was really heartfelt.
Well, of course, track's Allison Felix earned her 11th medal, passing the great Carl Lewis all time, and 12-year-old Kokona Hiraki won a silver medal in skateboarding, becoming the youngest ever to win a medal at the Olympics. Could you imagine, 12 years old?
No, I could not. That'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Gator, did you have any favorite athletes?
Joe, to be totally honest with you, my favorite is this Winter Olympics. I love almost every event in the Winter Olympics. In the Summer Olympics, I like to watch it just as a fan. Not to analyze it too much. So I was just rooting for the United States. If you want to know the truth, everything that the United States was doing, I was rooting for them.
I was a big fan of the bronze medal marathoner Molly Seidel, who told her family to drink a beer for her after the event. Any girl who can win a medal and drink beer gets extra points in my book. The Canadian women's soccer goalkeeper Stephanie Labb, who acted like a crazy knack during the final shootout. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. I wish I would have, though.
She was psyching out the Swedish players and winning Canada's first soccer gold. And how about tiny San Marino's 3 medal-winning athletes? San Marino has a population of about 34,000 people. The U.S. has 333 million, just so you know. If you were to extrapolate a medal for every 11,000 citizens, the U.S. should win 30,000 medals every Olympics compared to San Marino.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
So finally, Gator, were there any disappointments for you during the Olympics?
No, I am so glad that they got the Olympics off. There was a chance that we weren't going to have the Olympics, so they could have just canceled it completely. So, no, I'm not disappointed that they got the Olympics off. I just think the world needed something to come together. This is one way for them to come together. I'm really glad that the Winter Olympics are right around the corner, instead of having to wait 2 years. And I think the world needs to come together. They just do.
Nicely said. I was a little disappointed the men's track and field won only 1 gold medal, and men's boxing hasn't won a gold medal since 2004. These are sports we used to be and are supposed to be super competitive in, let alone winning goals. But other than that, I was pretty impressed with it. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. I love being here. Thank you so much.
We'll have you again next week. Gator Gates. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make us angry about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end, something went horribly wrong, and they ended up being losers. It's the segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
Yeah, so do you have any good stories or terrible stories, Joe?
Well, I can't say anything terrible happened to me this week, but I'll never forget a game played on November 29th, 1992. The 9-2 Buffalo Bills at the 4-7 Indianapolis Colts. Back then, they actually played in the same division. Buffalo was on its Super Bowl appearance run on a 6-game winning streak, and earlier in the year, the Bills had beaten the Colts 38-0. All I need is Buffalo minus 1.5 on the big teaser card to win a ticket. The game goes to overtime. Buffalo gets the ball. Jim Kelly's first pass goes directly to a linebacker all alone who drops a sure interception. To me, it didn't look like an errant pass. So I tell everyone in the sports book that can hear me, he threw that to him on purpose. After I got some strange looks, the very next play, Kelly throws it right into that same player's breadbasket all alone. He intercepts it, sets up the Colts' game-winning field goal. To me and everyone around me at that moment, that didn't seem like an accident. Kelly in that game went 11 for 33 with 2 interceptions. A few years later, Kelly retires. He signs an endorsement deal with BetUS.com, an internet gambling website out of Costa Rica, where people were betting, from their own home computers. That to me is no coincidence. Jim Kelly threw that game. How about you, Gator?
Wow, that's a story, Joe. That's a story, Joe.
It's a story I full on believe, and I'll take it to my grave. I believe it in my heart. Gator, do you have a you got hosed moment?
Well, I was looking hard for one, and I was trying to keep it in the Olympic theme, and I had a real hard time with one. But I did find this story. It was an equestrian jumping where each gate at the Tokyo Games, each gate had a different theme that represented Tokyo. Well, at the 10th gate, they had a real-life looking sumo wrestler, and 5 of the horses that were in the heat races were trying to qualify for the finals, were spooked from this statue. Now, the Olympic Committee kept the statue there through the whole individual heat races, and they only moved the statue when the team competition came about. And if everybody remembers, that's the one that Jessica Springsteen got her medal in. Now, I don't know if her horse was one of them that got spooked. I couldn't find anything around there because she didn't even qualify for the finals. So anyways, I do think that the horses that did get spooked, I think they all got hosed.
Well, that's an interesting story. I hadn't heard that one. It's also interesting that women and men compete against each other in equestrian, which...
That's pretty neat, I think. That's the only sport I could think of where men and women are equal in their field in that sports.
Well, that was a good one. So our producer is going to tabulate, see who he thinks is the better of the You Got Hosed moments, and I think he is ready.
Thanks, Joe. Good stories on both sides. It sucks about the horses not being able to compete the way they should or they could because of some statue, but got to go with Joe this week, holding on to this distant memory of this game, this colossal game for you. You keep close to heart, losing the game, and then that blows your card, thinking you have it in the bag, and he doesn't throw a pick, and then he does throw a pick, game over. You got hosed, man.
You got hosed.
So that's it for this week. I'd like to thank my guests Charles O'Loughlin, Ronnie McKinnon, and Gator Gates, and our producer, our engineer, our editor, and everyone for listening. And we'd like you to listen to our fantasy football mock draft special. And in a couple of weeks, we will be launching our Covering the Field website. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and you'll hear us again next week on another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field, a CM World Services and Lesage production.